What is up, everyone, and welcome back to the FATletic experiment. For those of you who do not know, I started a fat loss experiment about a little less than 2 months ago, where I gave myself 90 days to see how athletic I could get, starting as someone who was severely overweight and really only fitness experience was just lifting weights, where I'd effectively been bodybuilding for years, but I was just fat. I was just lifting and eating a lot. So can you call that bodybuilding? I don't know. You can't call it powerlifting. I didn't squat for years, right? I'm squatting during this mesocycle for the first time in years. But beyond all that, nowadays I'm a personal trainer. I'm getting educated in nutrition, but I figured that how am I ever going to help people achieve their goals if I can't do it myself? So I started this experiment to try to see how athletic I could get, right? So I measured my vertical jump, my 40-yard dash, I measured my lifts, like how strong I was, and I was just going to see how athletic I could get in just 90 days, right? Broke it up into 3 phases, and phase 2 is coming to an end. So that means this week I get to show you guys how I'm going into peaking so I can make sure that my testing day is as effective as, or not as effective, but as good as possible. So I truly get to peel back the curtain and see how much progress I've actually made, right? Because it's not just as simple as lift hard as hell and try as hard as I can in the gym for a month and then just go in and be like, okay, I'm going to jump as high as I can and I'm going to jump 3 inches higher than I ever have before. It's not that simple. When you actually want to get PRs, especially on things like jumping and sprinting that are very fatigue delicate, but even strength to an extent, you have to acknowledge how you're going to peak for that, right? So you have power lifters, they'll have peak week. And if you watch any top vertical jumpers, whenever they try and hit their vertical jump PRs or world records, they completely deload right before, right? So I'm going to show you guys how I'm approaching that deload, both from a physical standpoint, like in my training, what I'm doing outside of the gym, right? So that's other recovery things like, spoiler alert, I'm taking a lot of Epsom baths. I'm still taking my creatine. My calories are up slightly. I'm still eating in a very slight deficit, but instead of being at about a 500 to 750 deficit range, I'm going for about 250 to 500, right? So half a pound to a pound a week. Maybe a little less than that because I've had a kind of bad couple days here in terms of the diet. But all that aside, we're not going super, super precise on the way that I'm, tracking and the way I'm approaching my food right now, because I'm trying to just make sure I have enough energy when that peaking or that testing day comes around, right? So I'm going to show you guys my last heavy day of training, right? So that's the highest intensity day of training I've had. I felt like I was dying the entire time. I'm going to show you guys that. Then I'm going to show you guys everything else I'm doing to get me ready to peak this weekend. All right, on to this session. This is the heaviest session of the entire mesocycle. So we're going for 315 for 3. Not a super heavy weight in the grand scheme of things, but definitely a big PR for me. This is 20 pounds heavier than I've ever even squatted at all. So doing it for 3 was big.
Yeah, there you go.
Technique was a little iffy here. I physically wasn't feeling very good at all on this day. I was feeling actually terrible. But got the lift done. Then we're going to go ahead and get into the power cleans right after the squat. Well, not right after. Took a long rest and then did a back down on the squats as well. But we're here at the power cleans. We're doing 185 pounds for 3. This is also 20 pounds over what I've ever done. And the weight moved incredibly well today, but you're going to look at this. This is some of the weaker technique I've had in the past couple weeks. I think my technique has been getting a lot better, but I think this session was a step back for sure. So definitely need to still work on technique. Probably will do, I already have done some technique practice since then, but I'm also going to do extra technique practice on the day of maxing out my power clean just to get extra work in there. And then we're going to finish up the session with some depth jumps here, just trying to work on redirecting force, eccentric RFD to finish out the session. A little bit of application right at the end here.
I fucking heard it. I heard you go. Hey, yo.
Then for my recovery sessions on this peak week here, this session didn't have any sort of technique practice. Other sessions did have technique practice.
I work in a gym, so in between some sessions I had, some personal training sessions, I just did a little bit of hang cleans, really light, just getting my clean technique a little better, making sure my catch is good. But basically what I'm doing here is isometrics. So here I got a quad isometric. This really helps my knees. I've had a long history of knee issues. So I'm doing a quad isometric on both knees here. Work on that patellar tendon, a little bit on the quad tendon. About 30 seconds per side here. And then after this, I'm going to get into some hamstring curl isometrics. These aren't as important, but they also do feel quite nice on my knees. Hamstring strengthening is really good for people that have had ACL issues in the past, and I've torn my ACL 3 times. So strengthening hamstrings is great. And then I get into a glute bridge type isometric. So this is going to get the glutes and the hamstrings activated both. Same thing with the hamstrings, but also since it's training hip extension rather than knee flexion, it just trains a little bit of a different biomechanical movement, makes it, different and worth doing in addition to the hamstring curls. Final thing in this session is just some depth drops. This is basically to activate the nervous system and also train some more isometric / I guess the term people use is quasi-isometric, but landings like this. So I'm using depth drops to just stimulate the nervous system in a really low fatiguing way to get me ready for my max vertical, max squat, and max power clean.
All right, y'all. Just got out of an Epsom bath. Didn't record in there because I'm not trying to record when my nard's out. Sorry. Maybe if there's enough comments wanting it, I'll start the OnlyFans. But yeah, I'm just gonna chill in bed. Rest and relaxation is super important for recovery, right? So I basically capped out my fatigue in my last training session, and we're just dropping everything back, doing minimal fatigue exercises that are still going to stimulate my nervous system and get me ready to max out this weekend. Thank y'all for watching. Like, subscribe, comment for the algorithm, hype the video if you can, do all the things. I appreciate y'all. I'll see y'all next week for the PRs. Hopefully, PRs on vertical, PRs on sprints, PRs on squat, PRs on power clean. It's gonna be pretty hype. Let's go.